On August 7, 2025, the global economic order as we know it was officially upended. President Trump didn't just start a trade skirmish, he launched a trade war on all fronts, imposing sweeping tariffs on imports from over 90 countries. The effective tariff rate has skyrocketed to levels not seen in over a century, since the era of the Great Depression. Economists from across the spectrum warned of dire consequences, rising prices, slowing growth, and global instability. Yet, something strange happened. With a few exceptions, the world didn't fight back with equal fire. Most of America's major trading partners, from the European Union to Japan, have largely acquiesced. And here at home, the reaction has been muted. Despite warnings that this is effectively a massive tax on American consumers, there are no mass protests. The economic earthquake that was predicted has, so far, felt like a distant tremor. This raises a series of critical questions. Why did the world fold so quickly? Why does a significant portion of the American public seem indifferent to the fact that they are the ones footing the bill? And most importantly, is this the calm before a self-inflicted economic storm? Today, we're cutting through the noise to understand the 5 reasons this historic gamble is likely to backfire on the United States. First, let's address the quiet surrender. President Trump is taking a victory lap, and at a glance, it's easy to see why. After months of threats and delays, the tariffs are in place. Formidable economies like the EU and Japan have made peace, agreeing to deals that accept higher tariffs on their goods. So, why did they cave? It wasn't necessarily complacency. It was a strategic calculation born from a shock and awe trade policy. The tariffs were so broad and the rhetoric so aggressive that many nations likely chose what they saw as the lesser of two evils, accept the tariffs on goods to avoid an even wider, more unpredictable conflict. They chose a guaranteed economic hit over a potentially catastrophic one. China is the main exception, engaging in a tit-for-tat tariff war with the US. But for many others, the path of least resistance seemed wisest. However, this victory is deceptive. It has created a world of simmering resentment and, crucially, exposed America's biggest economic vulnerability, a vulnerability our trading partners have yet to exploit. This brings us to the second, and perhaps most baffling, part of this story, the disconnect between policy and consequence here at home. President Trump has repeatedly claimed that foreign countries will pay these tariffs. This is, to put it bluntly, not how tariffs work. Think of it this way. When a shipment of German cars or French wine arrives in a US port, it's the American company, the importer, that pays the tariff tax to the US government. That importer is a business. To stay in business, they have 2 choices: absorb the new cost and make less profit, or pass the cost on to their customers. Guess which one they choose? Study after study confirms that the cost of these tariffs is borne almost entirely by US consumers and businesses. One analysis from the Budget Lab at Yale suggests American consumers are likely to absorb 80–90 of the costs. So why isn't there more outrage? There are a few reasons. First, the lag effect. Most people haven't felt the full impact yet. Businesses often have existing inventory and may absorb initial costs to avoid losing customers. As one commenter put it, people will only push back when it starts to hurt. Second, political identity. For many supporters, this isn't about economics. It's about a message of national strength and fighting back against what they see as unfair trade practices. In one poll, just under half of Trump voters said they support tariffs on China even if it increases prices at home. They are cheering the action, not calculating the cost. And finally, complexity. As a trade policy analyst noted, the subject can seem deadly boring to most people. This complexity creates a fog that allows a simple but incorrect narrative China is paying to take hold. The third reason this strategy is so risky lies in a part of our economy that President Trump rarely mentions: services. While the US has a massive trade deficit in goods, meaning we buy more physical stuff from the world than we sell, we have an enormous trade surplus in services. In 2024, that surplus was over $290 billion. What are services? Think of Hollywood movies, software from Silicon Valley, American university education for foreign students, and Wall Street's financial expertise. These are massive, high-value exports. And here's the problem: the very countries we are hitting with goods tariffs are the biggest customers for our services. They are running a service deficit with the United States. So far, they have not retaliated by targeting this sector, but why not? It could be that targeting services is more complex than goods. Or perhaps they are holding this as their trump card, an economic nuclear option to be used if tensions escalate further. But the threat is clear. By focusing obsessively on the goods deficit, the administration has put a giant target on the back of one of America's most successful and profitable export sectors. It's a classic case of living in a glass house while throwing stones. So, if the impact hasn't been fully felt yet, when will it be? This is the fourth and most dangerous part of the equation. The consensus among economists is that we are heading for a painful combination of slower growth and higher inflation. Let's look at the numbers. The Yale Budget Lab projects the tariffs will cause an immediate 1.8% increase in consumer prices. The Penn Wharton budget model goes further, forecasting that in the long run, these policies will reduce GDP by about 6% and wages by 5%. That translates to a lifetime loss of $22,000 for a middle-income household. But the real nightmare scenario that economists are whispering about is stagflation. That's a toxic brew of a stagnant economy, meaning slow growth and job losses combined with high inflation, where the cost of everything keeps going up. It's the worst of both worlds, and it's incredibly difficult for any government to fight. How long do we have? It's impossible to say for sure, but the effects are already starting to filter through in certain sectors. The longer these historically high tariffs remain, the more businesses will be forced to pass on costs, disrupt their supply chains, and cancel investments. It's not a matter of if this will hit the broader economy, but when and how hard. Finally, let's connect the dots. The administration boasts about the billions in tariff revenue being collected by the US Treasury. But as we've established, this money doesn't magically appear from other countries. It's paid by American importers and ultimately by American consumers. So, what is this really? It's a tax increase, plain and simple. It's one of the largest consumer tax hikes in recent memory, disproportionately hitting middle and lower income families who spend a larger portion of their income on essential goods. This raises an uncomfortable question. As one financial analyst pointed out, is this new revenue stream being used to address the national deficit, or is it effectively a backdoor way to fund other policies, like tax cuts that tend to benefit the wealthy? While the administration argues this is about protecting American jobs, most economists disagree, stating that tariffs actually make domestic industries less competitive in the long run by shielding them from competition. They are a tax on the many for the questionable benefit of a few. So, where does this leave us? We have a trade policy that has secured the temporary submission of our allies at a potentially staggering long-term cost. It is being paid for by the very citizens it claims to protect, many of whom are either unaware of the cost or are willing to pay it for symbolic reasons. It has exposed our most profitable export sector to retaliation, and it has started a countdown clock to significant inflation and a potential recession. President Trump has warned that overturning these tariffs would trigger a 1929-style Great Depression. The irony is that, according to a vast majority of economic experts, keeping them in place is what risks steering us toward our own entirely self-inflicted economic crisis. Indifference to the complex workings of the global economy is not a sustainable strategy. The bill for this unprecedented gamble is coming due, and the question is no longer if it will be paid, but by whom and for how long.